Hi guys, and welcome to Samsung Now. Samsung Now is where we look at all things Samsung, all things tech, all things gaming, and anything in between. And some of that in between is the new series of 4K UHD Blu-ray movie reviews that have just come out and also have been out for some time in some cases. As we're finding with a lot of these sort of 4K releases, they're very much delayed in some respects to the actual HD release, and some are actually sort of just coming out over sort of a relatively sort of a long period of time. I feel it's taking longer than it really should. The one we're reviewing right now is Sicario. Great movie. First of all, it's one of those ones that I imagine sort of flies under a lot of people's radars because I don't feel it got the attention it deserved. But it is certainly well worth taking a good hard look at this movie. It stars Emily Blunt. I've made some notes. Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin. Basically, Emily Blunt plays an FBI agent. She's a bit of a goody two-shoes. She's exceptionally good at her job, and she's got high morals, and you know, these values really gain her a lot of respect within the FBI. So much so that she's kind of brought in to be part of a sort of clandestine group headed by Josh Brolin, and has this weird unknown sort of advisor who's this complete unknown, which is Benicio del Toro, who plays a brilliant part in this movie. And essentially it's to stop the drugs war that's going on the Mexican border in Jerez, and it really is pretty simple as that, but the story is more involving. You get, you know, there's a real sort of sense of history in terms of where Del Toro is, and Brolin himself, how they've become sort of involved in all this and become sort of, it's become their lives, and how it's all weaved together is very smart and very clever. It's a very great and gripping story. It's well paced. Blunt plays a fairly decent part, but for me, she kind of struggles to be believable in this role, a bit like she was in the one where Tom Cruise kept dying. Live, Die, Repeat Again, or whatever it was called. It's kind of similar feel that I get to her that I had in that movie, I have in this one, where I feel I'm not really buying into her character very much. I know she's being sort of pushed and being touted as this sort of action girl, I believe, but it doesn't wash with me. Just not feeling it. But she plays a good role, she plays a good part, but I believe it probably could have been served better by someone else. But who that someone else would have been, it's hard to say. Josh Brolin is this grouchy, he's an unforgiving, he's hard, he's kind of seen it all, he's been there and done that, and he plays the character really well, and this kind of goes very well with Brolin's sort of demeanor, sort of natural demeanor, and it just sort of, you believe him, you believe he's been, excuse the huge tractor just going past, you do believe that he is this person. And the same is true for Del Toro. Huge fan of his work. He plays really hard, believable, sort of hard to reach characters where you know there's more to that person than what you're seeing, and he really brings that to this character that he plays. And he's kind of this unknown advisor, and you begin to learn more about him as a character and where he's from, and you realize, you know, he's a bit of a nasty piece of work. So the story, you know, is well placed, is that you feel the tension, as sort of Blunt is made to make some sort of slightly morally bankrupt and questionable decisions, as they all are along this sort of journey that they're going through. The setting is grimy, it's hard, it's hot. We're getting a lot of sort of Mexico border stuff in these reviews, aren't we? But yeah, it's so incredibly well directed by Denis Villeneuve, who surprisingly actually directed Arrival, which we'll also be reviewing. But it's just so well directed and so well put together, and you get a real sense of the characters. And you know how you kind of become a little bit invested in the characters, and that leads you to sort of constantly guessing what their roles and motivations are. And that's kind of, you're still left guessing good way into the movie, and then it starts to unravel a bit more. The visuals are great, and it's probably no surprise the visuals are great because the cinematographer is Roger Deakins, who did Shawshank Redemption, No Country for Old Men, and also Skyfall. So that sort of, with the direction and the cinematography, you know, it's no wonder it looks and feels so great. And what they've done with the transfer to 4K is really, really well done. The colors are natural, but they've used a decent sort of color palette on the colorist, sort of where they've used a colorist. And how they've used that is very subtle, and you get a sense of the tension and heat, and the, you know, in Jerez, you just, that whole sort of tension and build up is sort of added by the heat of the colors as well. And they've done that really well in terms of transferring all that over to 4K onto Blu-ray. The darks are inky black, you know, there's no sort of, and if you've got on a HDR, on a decent TV, you can really pull those out and see some real detail in those dark areas, and that adds more to it. So it's a really good transfer from, you know, sort of the film to 4K Blu-ray, and it's really well done. Sound is great too. It's subtle. It's not too. Soundtrack is subtle as well. It's not too much in your face, and when things do happen, there's a real sense of space in terms of the Atmos as well. So, you know, it's an Atmos track, so it's really well done. It's subtle. There's not too much of it, so you become blind or deaf to it. You know, you're aware of what's happening, but it adds to what's happening on the screen. The extras are okay. It's sort of the usual fare of what you can expect. The Blu-ray version, standard Blu-ray HD version, is really good too. Obviously you're not pulling out as much detail as you would with the HDR and 4K, but it's still a very good transfer over. But yeah, it's still really good. So as a movie, it's really very good, and it's one that stands up to being watched a couple of times, because there are things that you miss, there's subtleties that you miss, and there's things that make you go, oh. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend it. It's also very good as a reference material. In fact, AV forums use it as their own reference material. So if you ever want to sort of try out and test a new TV, or you're thinking of buying a new TV and you want to try it out, use this movie as a good benchmark, because the way they've got it set up for sound and in terms of picture quality, it's really very good. So yeah, for me, you get just quickly, you get the Ultra HD, the Blu-ray, and the download. My most recent gripe with a lot of these movies is you don't get the noir versions, and I would really hope that they would start to include those more. So we really want to see more of that. But overall, it's an okay package, but the movie really makes up for it, really. It's a great movie, and one I would thoroughly recommend you to go out and rush and buy now. Go and buy it. Buy this movie. Buy this movie. Buy this movie. Okay, guys, if you've seen this movie, let me know what you think. Of course, don't give any spoilers or anything. And we've got more reviews coming in, doing some today. But yeah, well worth watching, well worth buying, and one for the collection. Okay, guys, have a great day.